The wind screamed like an angry animal, and the rain hit the old windows so hard it sounded like stones. Papa Joel held Mama Ruth's hand as they stood on the porch of the only home they had known for 47 years. Their 3 grown children blocked the doorway like strangers. Mark held the house keys. Linda held a folder of papers. Simon stood behind them, quiet, with his eyes cold and fixed on the ground. Then Mark said the words that made Mama Ruth's knees go weak, "You can't stay here tonight. This house isn't yours anymore." The storm was getting worse, the power lines were swaying, and the trees were bending like they might snap. Mama Ruth looked at the faces she once kissed goodnight and whispered, "You would leave us to die out there in this storm." Linda did not answer. She just stepped forward and pulled the door almost closed. Papa Joel felt the wet cold touch his skin and the deep hot pain of betrayal burn his chest. He tried one last time. "We are your parents," he said. "We are 85. Where do you expect us to go?" Mark's mouth tightened. "That's not my problem anymore." The door clicked. The lock turned. Mama Ruth heard it and gasped like the sound itself had slapped her. In that moment, with thunder shaking the sky and the world going dark, one question rose inside Papa Joel like a warning bell. If their own children could do this, what else had they been hiding, and how far were they willing to go to keep it hidden? 2 days earlier, the sky had been calm, and the air had been warm. Papa Joel and Mama Ruth had been sitting at their small kitchen table, sharing a bowl of soup and talking slowly the way old people do, as if time is a soft thing you can hold. Their home was not fancy, but it was solid. Papa Joel built parts of it himself when he was younger. He was a careful man. He saved money in jars. He fixed broken chairs instead of buying new ones. Mama Ruth grew tomatoes in the backyard and gave extra to neighbors. Their life had been simple, and their love had been steady. They had 3 children, and they had once believed they raised them with the same steady love. Mark was the oldest. He was smart and loud and liked to be in charge. When he was a boy, he was the one who talked to adults like he was already grown. Linda was the middle child. She was charming and knew how to smile at the right time. She could make people feel safe, even when she was not being truthful. Simon was the youngest. He used to be gentle, the kind of boy who rescued injured birds and cried in sad movies. But as he grew older, something changed. He became quieter, and his quiet did not feel kind. It felt closed. For years, the children visited less and less. At first, they said it was work. Then it was traffic. Then it was the children's school. Then it was always something. Mama Ruth tried not to complain. She told herself, "They are busy. They still love us." Papa Joel did not argue, but he noticed things. He noticed how Mark asked questions about the house. He noticed how Linda stared at the family documents in the cabinet. He noticed how Simon walked through rooms like he was measuring them. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, all 3 children arrived at the same time. That alone felt strange. They came with smiles that looked a little too practiced. They brought a cake from a store and a bottle of juice. They hugged Mama Ruth, but their hugs were quick. They patted Papa Joel's shoulder like he was a neighbor, not a father. Mark said, "We have something important to talk about." Linda placed a folder on the table. "It's for your protection," she said softly. "Just planning." Papa Joel frowned. "Planning what?" Mark leaned forward. "The future. You know. You are getting older." Mama Ruth laughed nervously. "We are already old, Mark." Linda smiled, but her eyes did not smile. "Exactly. We don't want you to struggle later. If something happens, it can be messy. Hospitals, papers, decisions. We want to make it easier." Papa Joel's heart beat slower, heavier. He did not like being rushed. Mark opened the folder. Inside were papers filled with small words and lines. There were places to sign. Mark tapped the paper. "This is just to help us manage things for you. It's a power of attorney. It lets us handle bills, insurance, anything you might need. It protects you." Mama Ruth looked at Papa Joel. "That sounds helpful." Papa Joel did not answer right away. He picked up the papers and held them close to the window to read the tiny print. The words were hard for his eyes. He could read, but it took time. Mark's voice sharpened. "Dad, you don't need to read every word. We already checked it." Papa Joel looked up. "I read what I signed." Linda's voice stayed sweet. "We understand. But we also know reading it all will tire you." The lawyer explained it. Papa Joel asked, "What lawyer?" Simon spoke for the first time. His voice was flat. "A lawyer we know." Papa Joel asked, "What is his name?" Mark waved his hand. "Dad, please. Don't do this. This is family." Papa Joel did not like that sentence. Sometimes people say, "This is family," when they want you to stop thinking. Mama Ruth touched Papa Joel's arm. "Joel, maybe it is fine. They are our children." Papa Joel loved his wife, and he did not want to embarrass her. But he also felt a cold little warning in his gut. So he said, "If it is fine, we can take it to our own lawyer tomorrow. Then we will sign." Mark's face tightened so quickly it was like a mask slipping. Linda's smile froze. "There's no need. It's urgent." "Urgent why?" Papa Joel asked. Mark leaned closer. "Because of your insurance, Dad. There is an update. If we don't do this now, there could be problems." Mama Ruth's eyes widened. "Problems? Like what?" Linda lowered her voice. "Like losing coverage. Like delays if you get sick. We are trying to protect you." Papa Joel watched them. He watched Mark's impatient fingers. He watched Linda's careful voice. He watched Simon's quiet stillness. Then he did something he almost never did. He lied. He said, "All right. I will sign." Mama Ruth looked surprised. The children's shoulders relaxed. Linda slid a pen toward him. "Just here and here." Papa Joel held the pen. His hand shook slightly, but not from age. From anger, from fear, from confusion. He signed 2 spots. Then Mark turned the page fast. "And here too." Papa Joel paused. "This page looks different." Mark said, "It's all part of it." Papa Joel said, "I want to read this one." Mark's voice snapped. "Dad." Mama Ruth flinched. "Mark." Linda quickly said, "He's just stressed. He's been handling a lot. Please, Papa Joel. We are only trying to help." Papa Joel looked at Mama Ruth. He saw trust in her eyes. He saw hope. He saw the part of her that still wanted to believe their children could not hurt them. So Papa Joel signed again. And again. By the time they left, the folder was thin. The pen was back in Linda's purse. Their smiles were back on their faces. Mark hugged Mama Ruth and said, "We will check on you tomorrow." Linda kissed Mama Ruth's cheek. "Rest, okay." Simon nodded once at Papa Joel. "Night." After they left, Mama Ruth washed dishes while humming softly, trying to settle her nerves. Papa Joel sat at the table and stared at the empty place where the folder had been. He did not like how fast it all happened. He did not like how they pushed. He did not like how Mark got angry when asked a simple question. That night, Papa Joel did not sleep well. He dreamed of doors closing and keys turning. The next morning, he woke up early and went to the small cabinet where they kept important papers. He pulled out the house deed. He held it in his hands. It was still there. He tried to calm himself. "Maybe I am imagining it," he told himself. "Maybe they really want to help." Then the phone rang. Mama Ruth answered. Her face changed as she listened. She held the phone away from her ear as if it was hot. Papa Joel asked, "Who is it?" Mama Ruth whispered, "A bank." The bank voice was polite but firm. "We are calling about the change in property ownership documents and the account connected to the home." Papa Joel felt the room tilt. "Change in ownership," he said loudly. Mama Ruth shook her head, terrified. The voice continued, "We need confirmation from the new authorized signers." Papa Joel grabbed the phone. "There is no new owner," he said. "This is my house." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Sir, according to the document filed this morning, your house has been transferred." Papa Joel's mouth went dry. Transferred to who? The voice gave a name Papa Joel did not recognize. An organization. A company. Papa Joel asked, "Who filed it?" The voice said, "It was filed by authorized representatives. The names listed include your children." Papa Joel looked at Mama Ruth. Mama Ruth's hands were shaking. Mama Ruth whispered, "No, they wouldn't." Papa Joel felt something hard form inside him, like a stone. He hung up and called Mark. No answer. He called Linda. No answer. He called Simon. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Then a weather warning came on the radio. A big storm was expected that night. Strong winds. Heavy rain. Flooding. Mama Ruth sat down slowly, as if her body had turned heavy. Papa Joel said, "We are going to the courthouse. We are going to find out what they did." Mama Ruth nodded, but her eyes were wet. Why would they do this? Papa Joel did not have an answer yet. But he was sure of one thing. Whatever their children were doing, they were hiding something. And the storm that was coming was not only in the sky. When Papa Joel and Mama Ruth reached the courthouse, the clerk looked at the computer and then looked away too fast, like she did not want to be the one to say it. She told them, "Your property shows a transfer filed this morning. It looks legal." Papa Joel said, "We did not agree to give away our house." The clerk said quietly, "Your signatures are on the documents." Mama Ruth covered her mouth. "We thought it was protection papers." Papa Joel asked, "Can we stop it?" The clerk glanced around and lowered her voice. "You can try. But this kind of filing is hard to undo quickly. You need a lawyer. And you need to move fast." Papa Joel thanked her and turned to leave. As they stepped outside, the wind picked up. The sky darkened like someone spilled ink. Mama Ruth held Papa Joel's arm. "Joel, what if they come tonight?" Papa Joel said, "Then we face them." But even as he spoke, his stomach clenched, because a new fear had arrived. If the children were willing to steal the house, what else were they willing to do to keep the stolen house? That evening, as the first heavy rain began to fall, headlights appeared in their driveway. 3 cars. 3 familiar shapes. Mama Ruth whispered, "They're here." Papa Joel stood up and set his jaw. He walked to the door and opened it. Mark, Linda, and Simon stepped onto the porch, not carrying cake this time, not smiling this time. Linda held the same folder. Mark held a set of keys. And Simon held something else. A small metal box, the kind used for documents. Simon's eyes met Papa Joel's, and in that cold look, Papa Joel understood this was not a misunderstanding. This was a plan. And it had already started. Papa Joel realizing, as the storm began and his children stood at the door with keys and documents, that they had not come to explain. They had come to take. The rain poured harder as Mark stepped inside like he owned the place. Linda followed, her shoes clean, her hair neat, as if weather did not touch her. Simon stayed near the door, holding the metal box. Mama Ruth stood in the living room with her hands clasped like she was praying. Papa Joel said, "What did you do?" Mark did not pretend. "We handled it, like we said we would." Papa Joel said, "You stole our home." Linda sighed as if Papa Joel was being difficult. "Please don't use harsh words. We did what needed to be done." Mama Ruth's voice broke. "Why?" Mark walked toward the cabinet. "Because you don't understand how things work anymore." Papa Joel stepped in front of him. "I understand theft. I understand lies." Mark's face hardened. "Dad, step aside." Papa Joel did not move. He was 85, but he was still tall, and his eyes still held fire. Linda opened the folder and spoke like she was reading a bedtime story. "You signed documents. It is legal. The house is transferred to a company that will manage your assets." Papa Joel said, "What company?" Linda said, "It's a family company." Papa Joel said, "I have never heard of it." Simon finally spoke. "It's new." Papa Joel stared at Simon. "New for what?" Simon's jaw moved, like he was chewing anger. "New for what we need." Mama Ruth whispered, "What do you need?" Mark's voice rose. "Money." That single word fell heavy in the room. Papa Joel said, "You need money, so you throw your parents out into a storm." Mark snapped, "Don't act like we are monsters. You have a house worth good money. You have land. And you are sitting here, making soup and talking about tomatoes, while we are drowning." Mama Ruth said softly, "Drowning in what?" Linda sat on the couch without being invited. She crossed her legs. "Debts," she said. "Bad choices. Things that got out of control." Papa Joel said, "Mark, you have a job." Mark laughed sharply. "A job is not enough when you mess up big." Papa Joel's mind raced. "What did you do?" Mark did not answer right away. He looked at Linda, then at Simon. Linda took over. "We were involved in a business plan. It was supposed to help families. It was supposed to be clean." Papa Joel said, "Supposed to be." Linda's eyes narrowed. "It turned complicated." Mama Ruth said, "Tell us." Linda's voice stayed calm, but something in her tone was like a warning. "If we tell you everything, you will panic. You will call people. You will make it worse." Papa Joel said, "Worse for who?" Mark stepped closer. "For us." Mama Ruth's hands trembled. "You did something wrong." Simon's voice was low. "People are angry." Papa Joel felt cold. "Who is angry?" Mark rubbed his forehead like he was tired. "Investors. Partners. People who want their money back." Papa Joel said, "So you take ours." Mark's face twisted. It's not yours anymore. Mama Ruth's eyes filled with tears. We built this home. We raised you here. I gave birth to you. Linda's voice softened in a way that felt fake. Mom, please. Don't make this emotional. This is practical. Papa Joel said, you made it emotional when you lied. Mark held up the keys. We are not here to argue. We are here to finish this. Papa Joel said, finish what? Mark nodded at Simon. Simon lifted the metal box and opened it. Inside were old documents, birth certificates, social security papers, insurance files. The papers Papa Joel kept safe. Mama Ruth gasped. Where did you get that? Simon's face did not change. We have access now. Linda said, the documents will be safer with us. Papa Joel realized, with a sick feeling, that they were taking control of everything. Not just the house. Everything. Papa Joel said, you tricked us into signing. You filed papers without explaining. You took our documents. Why? Mark's voice dropped. Because we need to protect ourselves. And you need to cooperate. Mama Ruth said, cooperate with what? Linda leaned forward. You are going to leave tonight. Quietly. You will stay somewhere else for a while. Papa Joel said, no. Mark's eyes flashed. Yes. Papa Joel stepped closer. I will call the police. Mark laughed. Call them. Tell them you signed. Tell them you want your house back. They will tell you it is a civil matter. They will tell you to get a lawyer. And by the time you do, it will be too late. Mama Ruth looked at Papa Joel, frightened. Joel. Papa Joel's heart pounded. He knew Mark might be right about the law moving slowly. But Papa Joel also knew something else. If you let bullies rush you, they win. Papa Joel said, we are not leaving. Linda's voice turned cold. Then we will make you leave. Outside, thunder roared. The lights flickered. Mama Ruth's breathing quickened. Please, please don't do this. Mark walked to the thermostat and turned off the heat. You can sit in the cold if you want, he said. But you are not staying. Papa Joel said, Mark, stop. Mark looked at him with something like hatred. You had your life. Now it is our turn. Papa Joel's mind replayed years. The scraped knees he cleaned. The school fees he paid. The nights he stayed awake when Linda had a fever. The time he drove Simon to the hospital after a bike accident. He stared at Mark and felt grief so sharp it felt like a cut. Mama Ruth began to cry, quietly at first, then harder. Linda stood and said, Mom, it has to happen. We can't lose everything. Papa Joel said, what will you lose? Linda hesitated. That hesitation was the first crack. Papa Joel stepped toward her. Tell me what you did. Linda's voice tightened. We were part of a program that placed elderly people in care homes. We helped families get support. Papa Joel said, that sounds good. Linda whispered, it wasn't good anymore. Mark barked, stop talking. But Linda continued, as if a heavy truth was pressing on her chest. There were payments. Government payments. Donations. Money meant for care. Papa Joel said, you stole it. Linda's eyes watered, but her face stayed firm. We took fees. Too many fees. We signed people up who did not qualify. We moved money around. Mama Ruth whispered, oh Lord. Papa Joel felt sick. That is fraud. Simon said quietly, people found out. Papa Joel said, so you need money to pay them back. Mark slammed his fist on the table. Enough. The lights flickered again and went out. For 1 second, the room was black except for lightning flashes. In that darkness, Papa Joel heard a new sound. Not thunder. A knock. Hard, fast, urgent, from the back door. Then a voice shouted over the storm, open up. We know you're in there. Mama Ruth grabbed Papa Joel's arm. Who is that? Mark's face went pale. Linda's eyes went wide. Simon backed toward the hallway like he was already planning an escape. Another knock. Stronger. The voice shouted again, give us our money, Mark. We are done waiting. Papa Joel felt the truth land in his bones. This was not only about greed. This was about danger. And now that danger was at their door, during the worst storm of the year, with the power out and nowhere safe to run. The strangers pounding on the back door in the middle of the storm, calling Mark by name, and demanding money, while Papa Joel realized his children had brought criminals to their parents' home. The pounding on the back door grew louder. Mama Ruth's whole body shook. Papa Joel stood in front of her without thinking, like a shield. Mark moved first. He rushed toward the hallway. Everyone be quiet, he hissed. Linda grabbed his arm. What do we do? Mark yanked free. We don't open it. The voice outside shouted, we can hear you moving. A crash hit the door, like someone threw their shoulder into it. Mama Ruth whispered, they will break in. Papa Joel looked at Mark, his voice steady even though his heart was racing. You brought this to our home. Mark snapped, not now. Papa Joel said, it is now. Linda's lips trembled. They followed us. They shouldn't have followed us. Papa Joel asked, who are they? Simon spoke like he had already accepted the worst. A man named Victor and his people. Mama Ruth whispered, people. Simon nodded once. He lent Mark money. A lot. Papa Joel said, to cover the fraud. Mark shouted, stop saying it. Another crash. The back door frame groaned. Papa Joel thought fast. Front door. We leave now. Mark spun toward him. No. You stay. This is still our plan. Papa Joel stared at him. You still think the plan matters more than our lives. Linda's voice broke. Mark, we need to go. Mark's face changed. For the first time, fear took over his anger. He realized he was not in control. Mama Ruth grabbed her coat from the chair, her hands clumsy. Joel, please. Papa Joel guided her toward the front door. Mark ran ahead and unlocked it. Cold wind slammed into them. Rain blew sideways. The world outside was chaos, with branches falling and water rushing down the street like a moving river. Mama Ruth hesitated. We can't walk in this. Papa Joel said, we can't stay in there. Behind them, the back door cracked. A piece of wood broke free and skidded across the kitchen floor. Linda screamed. Mark pushed Mama Ruth and Papa Joel forward. Go, go. Papa Joel did not miss the cruel truth. Mark was not saving them because he loved them. Mark was saving them because he did not want bodies tied to his crime. They stepped off the porch and into the storm. The rain soaked them in seconds. Mama Ruth's shoes slipped. Papa Joel held her tighter, trying to keep her upright. Linda ran beside them, crying, her perfect hair ruined by rain. Simon followed, looking over his shoulder. Mark ran last, gripping the folder of documents. They reached the street. A car engine roared behind them. Headlights cut through the rain. A black SUV stopped hard near the driveway. A tall man stepped out, wearing a dark coat like the weather did not bother him. Two others climbed out behind him. The tall man shouted, Mark. Mark froze. Papa Joel pulled Mama Ruth closer to a tree, trying to hide. The tall man walked forward with calm steps. He did not rush, and that calm was more frightening than anger. He said, you thought you could hide behind old people. Mark's voice shook. Victor, please. Not tonight. Look at the storm. Victor looked past Mark and saw Papa Joel and Mama Ruth. His eyes narrowed, then he smiled slightly, like he had found a useful tool. He said, so these are the parents. Mama Ruth whispered, Joel. Victor walked closer, stopping a few feet away. He spoke to Mark, but his eyes stayed on Papa Joel. You told me you had assets. You told me you had a house to leverage. You told me you had a plan. Mark's voice was small. I do. We did the transfer. Victor's smile disappeared. Then why am I still unpaid? Linda cried, we were going to pay you. We just needed time. Victor's head turned slowly toward Linda. Time is what people ask for when they have no money. Another bolt of lightning lit the street bright white for a second. In that light, Papa Joel saw Victor's face clearly. He looked ordinary. That was the worst part. Evil does not always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a man who is sure he will get what he wants. Victor stepped forward and said, here is what will happen. Mark will come with me. We will talk. And if I don't like the talk, I will take what I want. Mark said, you can't. Victor's voice stayed calm. I can. Victor nodded at one of his men. The man walked toward Papa Joel and Mama Ruth. Papa Joel's body reacted before his mind did. He raised his arm and stood in front of Mama Ruth. The man stopped close enough that Papa Joel could smell cigarette smoke. The man said, keys. Papa Joel said, we don't have keys. The man looked at Mark. He says they don't have keys. Mark swallowed. I have the keys. Victor held out his hand. Then give them. Mark hesitated. Victor's eyes sharpened. Mark. Now. Mark's hand shook as he placed the keys into Victor's palm. Victor looked at the keys, then looked at the house in the rain. Nice, he said. Then he looked back at Papa Joel and Mama Ruth. Too bad you won't enjoy it. Mama Ruth cried out. Please. We are old. We did nothing to you. Victor shrugged. You did something. You raised liars. Papa Joel's blood burned. We raised children. They chose to become liars. Victor tilted his head, almost amused. Maybe. Then Victor took a step toward Papa Joel and lowered his voice. Old man, I am going to ask you one question. Do you have any money hidden in that house? Cash, safe, anything. Papa Joel stared at him. He thought of the jars. He thought of the small savings. He thought of how hard they worked. He also thought of something more important. If he gave Victor what he wanted, Victor would take it and still hurt them. Papa Joel said, no. Victor smiled without warmth. We will see. Victor nodded again. His man grabbed Papa Joel's arm. Mama Ruth screamed, don't touch him. Papa Joel tried to pull free, but his body was old and wet and cold. Mark shouted, stop. Leave them out of this. Victor turned and slapped Mark hard across the face. Mark fell to one knee in the rain. Victor said quietly, you do not tell me what to do. Linda screamed, Mark. Simon stood frozen, eyes wide, as if his mind had left his body. Victor's man pulled Papa Joel toward the house. Mama Ruth tried to follow, but another man blocked her. Mama Ruth cried and begged, please. Please. Papa Joel looked back at her, trying to be strong. Ruth, listen to me, he shouted over the wind. Run to Mrs. Dorsey's house. Run. Mrs. Dorsey was a neighbor 2 houses down. She was a widow. She kept her porch light on for everyone. She had a phone. She had a strong voice. Mama Ruth hesitated. She did not want to leave Papa Joel. Papa Joel shouted, go. Mama Ruth turned and ran, slipping in the water, catching herself, running again. Linda started to run after her, but Simon grabbed Linda's arm. No, Simon hissed. If we run, he will chase. We have to keep him talking. Linda cried, talking won't save Dad. Simon's eyes flashed with fear and guilt. It might save us. Victor watched Mama Ruth run, but he did not stop her. He just smiled again, like he was letting a small animal run because he knew the storm would tire it out. Papa Joel was dragged toward the porch steps. The door opened. The warm home smell rushed out, and Papa Joel felt a sharp pain in his chest at the idea of losing it forever. Victor leaned close to Mark. You have until morning, he said. If I don't have my money, I will take your new house, your parents' old house, and whatever else I can find. And you will wish the storm had taken you instead. Victor stepped inside with his men, taking Papa Joel with them. Mark stumbled after them, shaking. Linda stood in the rain sobbing. Simon stared at the dark doorway like he had finally understood the size of what they had done. And down the street, Mama Ruth reached Mrs. Dorsey's porch and pounded on the door with both fists. Papa Joel being dragged back into the house by Victor's men while Mama Ruth ran through the storm to get help, and Victor promised Mark he would destroy them all by morning. Mrs. Dorsey opened the door, shocked to see Mama Ruth soaked and shaking like a leaf. Mama Ruth, she cried. What happened? Mama Ruth could barely speak. Help, she whispered. Please. They took Joel. Mrs. Dorsey did not waste time. She pulled Mama Ruth inside, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and grabbed her phone. She called the police first. Then she called the local emergency line for storm response. Then she called someone else too, because Mrs. Dorsey had lived long enough to know something important. Sometimes the fastest way to stop cruel people is to shine a bright light on them. She called her niece, Tasha, who worked at a small local news station. While Mrs. Dorsey spoke urgently into the phone, Mama Ruth sat on the couch, trembling, trying to breathe. She kept whispering, our children, our children. Mrs. Dorsey looked at her with a firm face. Listen to me. Your children may have done wrong, but we will not let you die because of their wrong. You hear me? Mama Ruth nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. Across the street, inside the house, Victor's men searched quickly. They opened drawers. They yanked open cabinets. They shook jars. They looked under the bed. Papa Joel was pushed into a chair in the living room. His wrists were not tied, but the men stood close enough that he knew he could not run. Victor sat across from him like he was visiting for tea. Mark stood near the wall, holding his cheek where he was slapped. Linda and Simon stood behind Mark, silent, wet, terrified. Victor asked Papa Joel again, any money hidden here? Papa Joel said, no. Victor watched him for a long moment, then nodded as if he believed him. Then Victor said, "Fine. Then we do this another way." Victor turned to Mark. "You said you had a solution." Mark swallowed. "I can sell the land behind the house. The small lot. It can happen fast." Victor leaned back. "Fast is a word you have abused." Mark's voice broke. "I swear, I will do it." Victor's eyes narrowed. "And what if you fail?" Mark did not answer. Victor pointed toward Papa Joel. "Then I break what you care about in front of you." Mama Ruth was not there to hear that, but Papa Joel was. Papa Joel felt fear, real fear, but he did not beg. He did not plead. He knew begging made some men kinder, but it made men like Victor stronger. Papa Joel said, "You will be caught." Victor smiled. "By who?" "The storm. The dark. The police who can't even drive in this." Just then, sirens sounded faintly in the distance. Victor's smile faded. Mark's eyes widened. "They're coming." Victor stood sharply. "Who called them?" Linda turned toward Simon, accusing. "Did you call?" Simon shouted, "No." Victor's gaze snapped to Papa Joel. "Old man, did you signal someone?" Papa Joel said, "My wife ran." Victor's face turned dangerous. "Your wife is alive." Papa Joel did not answer. Victor cursed under his breath. He turned to his men. "We leave. Now." Mark stepped forward. "Victor, please. Don't take them. Don't hurt them." Victor shoved Mark aside. "You should have thought about parents before you used them as a shield." Victor's men grabbed the metal box and the folder. They started toward the door. But the sirens grew louder, and now there were lights outside. Flashing red and blue cutting through rain. Victor paused and listened. Then, another sound. A loudspeaker. "Police. Come out with your hands visible." Victor's eyes hardened. He whispered to his men, "Back door." One man ran to the back. He returned quickly. "Flooded. Can't." Victor's jaw clenched. He looked at Mark. "You," he said softly, "are the reason this went bad." Mark began to cry. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Victor stepped close, almost nose to nose with him. "Sorry does not pay debts." Then Victor did something Papa Joel did not expect. He dropped the keys on the floor. He raised his hands. And he walked toward the front door like a man who believed he could talk his way out. When the door opened, 2 police officers stood there, wet and tense, guns pointed low but ready. Behind them were 2 more. Victor kept his voice calm. "Officers, thank goodness you're here. I'm checking on my friends. Storm night, you know." The officers did not relax. One officer looked past Victor and saw Papa Joel in the chair, shaken and soaked. He recognized him. "Mr. Joel," the officer said. "Are you okay?" Papa Joel's voice was steady. "No." That single word told the truth more clearly than any long story. The officers stepped in. Victor tried to speak again, but Mrs. Dorsey's niece, Tasha, was suddenly behind the officers, holding a camera under a rain cover. She was filming everything. Victor's eyes flicked to the camera, and for the first time, fear flashed across his face. Because Victor could fight a storm. He could fight frightened people. But he could not easily fight proof. The officers separated everyone. They asked Papa Joel and Linda and Mark and Simon questions. Mark tried to lie at first. "It's a misunderstanding," he said. But then the officer pulled out something surprising. A copy of the property transfer filing. The officer said, "We also have a report of elder financial abuse connected to this address." Mark's face fell apart. "Who reported that?" The officer said, "A clerk at the courthouse flagged it after speaking to your parents. Also, your mother's neighbor called us tonight. And now, the news is here." Linda stared at Mark like she wanted to blame him for everything. Simon looked like he might faint. Victor stood with his hands raised, watching the room like a chessboard, searching for a move. But the move was already made. Because Mama Ruth had done the bravest thing she had ever done. She had spoken. And speaking changes everything. The officers arrested Victor and his 2 men for threats and unlawful restraint, because Papa Joel clearly explained he was forced to stay seated and could not leave without fear. Tasha's video captured Victor's men searching the home and the fear in Mama Ruth's eyes when she arrived with police behind her. Then, because the officers were trained to look deeper when elders are involved, they asked one more question. "Why were your parents being removed from their house tonight?" Mark tried to answer, but Linda spoke over him. "Because the house is not theirs anymore." The officer turned. "What do you mean?" Linda lifted her chin. They signed it over. It's legal. The officer did not accept that easily. Signed it over to who? Linda hesitated. Simon whispered, a company. The officer asked, which company? Mark mumbled the name. The officer wrote it down and said, we will check. That is when the real karma began. Because the truth was bigger than a storm night. The police investigation did not stop with Victor. It followed the paper trail. The company Mark and Linda used was real, but it was created recently. It had almost no legitimate business. It was used to move money and hide ownership. The lawyer they claimed, explained everything, was not a normal lawyer. He was part of their plan. Within 2 days, the county elder protection office got involved. They interviewed Papa Joel and Mama Ruth carefully. They asked, did you understand what you signed? Papa Joel said plainly, no. They rushed us. They lied about what it was. Mama Ruth said, I trusted them. I thought they were protecting us. The case became clear. The children used their parents' trust to steal the house. But there was more. Once investigators pulled financial records, they found the larger crime Linda had almost confessed during the storm. Mark and Linda had been running a fake elder support program. They signed up older people who did not qualify. They charged hidden fees. They moved donated funds into private accounts. They used other people's names to apply for payments. They told families, we are helping, while taking what they could. And when angry partners like Victor demanded money, Mark panicked and decided the parents' home was the fastest asset to grab. That was the reason for the betrayal. It was not because Papa Joel and Mama Ruth were bad parents. It was because their children had chosen greed, and greed makes people cruel. Now, what about Simon? Simon was not the leader, but he helped. He carried papers. He stayed quiet. He followed. And that quiet was part of the harm. When the investigators spoke to Simon alone, he finally broke. He said, I knew it was wrong. But Mark said if I didn't help, he would blame me for everything. Linda said it was temporary. They said nobody would get hurt. The investigator asked, did you believe that? Simon cried, I wanted to. Simon made a choice then. A real choice. He agreed to tell the full truth. He gave passwords. He gave names. He gave details about how the money moved. That did not erase what he did, but it stopped him from becoming worse. Mark and Linda did not cooperate. They blamed everyone else. They blamed Victor. They blamed bad partners. They blamed stress. They blamed the economy. But the evidence did not care about excuses. The court froze the house transfer. The home was returned to Papa Joel and Mama Ruth. Mark and Linda were charged with elder financial abuse and fraud connected to the bigger scheme. The case grew when other families came forward. People who had lost money. People who had trusted the program. People who had been too embarrassed to speak until they saw the news story and realized they were not alone. Victor, the man who thought he controlled the night, faced charges too. His calm smile disappeared when he realized cameras and police reports were stronger than fear. And then came the final, quiet piece of karma that felt almost like a message. A week after the storm, another heavy rain came. Not as dramatic, but steady. The area behind Mark's new house, the house he bought with stolen money, began to flood. The ground had been damaged by rushed construction and poor planning. Water crept under the walls, ruining floors and furniture. Insurance refused to pay because the home paperwork was tied to investigation and fraud. The new house that Mark thought would be his safe place became a wet, rotting burden. Linda lost her job. Her friends stopped answering. Her proud smile vanished in court. Mark sat in a holding cell, staring at his hands, finally understanding that the parents he threw into the storm were the same parents who once held his hand when he was afraid of thunder. Mama Ruth and Papa Joel, meanwhile, were not saved by magic. They were saved by truth, by community, and by one brave decision to speak. They moved slowly at first. They slept poorly for weeks. Mama Ruth jumped at loud noises. Papa Joel sat in his chair and sometimes stared at the door like he expected it to open again. But Mrs. Dorsey came over every day for a while. So did other neighbors. A small church nearby helped them replace damaged items from the storm. Someone fixed the back door. Someone brought hot food. And one evening, as the sun set in a quiet orange sky, Mama Ruth sat beside Papa Joel on the porch. She said, Joel, I keep thinking, what did we do wrong? Papa Joel looked at her gently. We loved them. That was not wrong. Mama Ruth whispered, but love didn't stop this. Papa Joel nodded slowly. Love is not a leash. Love does not control what people choose. Mama Ruth wiped her eyes. I still feel ashamed. Papa Joel took her hand. No, he said firmly. The shame belongs to the ones who did wrong, not to the ones who trusted. Mama Ruth breathed out. I wish we had spoken sooner. Papa Joel said, we spoke when it mattered. And now other families spoke too. Mama Ruth looked toward the street, where the repaired trees stood still, no longer bending. Do you think Mark will ever understand? Papa Joel did not pretend. He may understand. He may not. But the truth does not depend on his understanding. Mama Ruth leaned her head on Papa Joel's shoulder. The lesson of their story was not that family always betrays you. The lesson was this: when something feels wrong, do not let fear or love silence you. Ask questions. Read what you sign. Speak to someone you trust outside the situation. Because silence protects the wrong people. Speaking protects the vulnerable. And on the night their children turned them out into a storm, Mama Ruth learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop protecting the people who are harming you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth, even when your voice is shaking. Because when the truth finally comes out, it becomes a kind of shelter. Not from rain or wind, but from the darkness inside people who think they can get away with anything. And that is exactly how karma caught up with their children. Not as a sudden miracle, but as consequences, evidence, and a door that finally opened to the light.